have it already. Thank you. Dear sailors and friends, ladies and gentlemen, dear organizers and hosts of this year's Helsinki Classic Yacht Symposium, thank you for having all of us, thank you for organizing all of this, and thank you for inviting me. Esko Kilpi and me exchanged quite some mails in the recent years. It never worked out, I don't know why. Thank you for asking me again, Kim. And how terribly sad that he cannot be with us here anymore. And thank you for the honor to be the after Pelle Pettersson speaker. Pelle and me only met once before, which was at the 12-meter European Championship on Marstrandsön in Sweden. I think it was in August last year. But as a meter class maniac, Pelle, I think about you quite often. For example, when sailing with my friend Kai on his 5.5 Kayu 2, a boat that participated in the Olympic Games in 1964 in Tokyo, when you won the bronze medal in the starboat class. Or for example, when trying to reactivate your famous 12-meter Sverige from 1977 for the growing 12-meter fleet on the Baltic. For example, when opening, I love that picture, that's in my museum, how about that? When opening this current exhibition, which is dedicated to the history of the America's Cup, and for example, when reading in newspapers just recently that it is 60 years ago that your famous Volvo was presented for the first time in a motor car show in Brussels. For me, these weeks and days have quite some jubilees as well, on a much lower level, of course. Since 25 years, I host an annual regatta, the Robbe Berking Sterling Cup, on our home fjord, the Flensburger Förde. Among them were 11 world and European championships. The most spectacular ones were probably the two Robbe Berking 12-meter World Championships in 2008 and 2011, and the two Robbe Berking 12-meter European Championships in 2015 and 2017, with 15 12s at the same bridge in 2015. I'm still proud about that, because never before but once so many 12s have been on the same regatta bridge as we had them in the Flensburger Segelclub in 2015. And never before means never before since 1906, when the international rule was agreed upon in the Langham Hotel in London. We love that rule, we love those boats, as you do, Pelle. That's why we wrote the formula at the wall in our museum and added the names of all the 12s that have been constructed since 1907. We did world and European championships for the 5.5, for the 6-meter class, for the 8-meter class, for Scary Cruiser classes this summer. 4 days in June, I think it's June 11 until June 14, the 26th Robbe Berking Sterling Cup will welcome the 22 Scary Cruiser class for their World Championship and the 12s, as always, for the Sterling Cup. I would like to tell you a bit more about what we have experienced in those 25 years. For the first 10 years, I was only organizer and host of classic boat regattas. All boats were allowed to come, as long as they were old and made out of wood. And it only took 2 or 3 years, and we have 200 boats participating. I brought some pictures. I brought much too many pictures, as Kim told me, so I have to show you happy sailors only a second. Some 12s, only a second. Happy sailors again, only a second. This summer, it's a picture from a couple of years ago when I had the honor to make the World Cup for the 22 Scary Cruisers already once. So we will see couples like this summer again. And during my races, which I do since 1995, one of the most beautiful boats always was this blue lady in the back. Sphinx, 1939, Henry Rasmussen, Arbeking and Rasmussen, a famous yacht all of you might know the yacht, but she looked like this 12 years ago. She belonged to the Navy, and the Navy, a couple of years later, auctioned that boat to 3 boys from Flensburg. Here they are, and I was the guy responsible for convincing them to do this, which was quite an adventure. Thank you. At that time, my boat yacht didn't exist, so we engaged some friends. We built up a tent. It's not even finished there in the back. And put the boat inside and restored her, which was quite something to do, as you can see here. And took some 2 years. I love that picture. She has only steel frames. This is how she looks today. And here she is sailing again on the Flensburg fjord. And when we opened this tent and Sphinx saw the sun for the first time again since years, all of us had tears in our eyes, and all of us asked themselves, what shall we do now? And that was the minute the idea was born to start a real yacht, which we then opened in 2009, 11 years ago. I first wanted to call it, no, let me go back. I first wanted to call it something like Ollie's Wooden Boat Box or Crazy Flensburg Wooden Boat Guys or something like that. But then I decided to give the yacht the name that has stood for my entire professional life. This is a nice show of pictures. These cars are not our cars. We had a visit from a Mercedes-Benz owners club, and they brought their own photographer, and the photographer asked me whether he might take a picture, and I said, yes, of course, as long as I may use your picture. So on the back, with the big red window, you see one of our 3 sheds, the biggest one we have, and the building in front is the museum, and the ground floor museum restaurant upstairs with a big terrace and offices and a lot of other things, which I will show you later. So I decided to call it Robbe Berking because Robbe Berking is my professional life, which normally looks like this. My great-great-grandfather started in 1874. This company, which I run since 1985, from time to time we try to combine both companies because they are much more similar than you could think. This cutlery has the name 12 because it exactly looks like a 12. I always tell that, nobody understands it, but I feel it does. But both companies are really quite similar because both markets are terribly small niche markets. There are not many people left in the world who like wooden boats. Everyone likes wooden boats, but who will buy a wooden boat? Maybe it's different in this room right now, but as soon as we have left the concert hit, the situation will change. And there are not that many people left who have silver cutlery or whatever on their tables. So it's very emotional products made by hand in the purest sense of the word, out of beautiful materials, mahogany here and silver there. And we made a lot of different boats in those 11 years. This is construction number 1 for customer number 1, which was my father. Oliver, now you started a boat yard. Do you have a customer? I said, no, but they will come. And then he asked me to do this for my parents, a rowboat. We made, I think, 6 of them. There you see 2 other rowboats. We made the Robbe Berking commuter boat, 9 meters and 12 centimeters long. Some 30 knots fast. Here it is on the Flensburg fjord during my regatta with Haiti, first rule 12 in the back. Here it is in Venice. We also construct modern boats. This is Georg Nissen, German naval architect, 50-foot cruiser racer, as he called it. But we love feeder boats. We constructed 3 6s. This is all in steel, 2 replicas from 2 famous boats that were lost. One of them burned down in the 1950s and the other one sank somewhere. One of them is Olin Stevens' Nirvana from 1939, and the other one is Bjarne Aar's Apache from 1939 as well. And we like to make nice pictures of the nice boats we construct. These are Nirvana and Apache. And Sphinx was 12 number 1, a restoration. This is 12 number 2, the very beginning, which was new constructed. This is Johan Anker's one but last design in his lifetime. He made that boat he designed that boat in 1939, but it was never built because the Germans started the war that year, and Johan Anker was an old man and died, I think, in October 1940, so the boat was never constructed. I found the old plans, and I found one of my favorite customers, a gentleman from Denmark, who said, "Oliver, come on, do it." And so we did it. Here she is on her way to be launched. A beautiful boat. A nice owner, there he is. Happy. Ingo and me, and the cockpit. Ingo is the boy on the right-hand side with the red jacket. If I make a tour through our yard and meet him with a journalist, I always say one day they will write books about Ingo, because he was responsible for 312, Sphinx, Johan Anker, and the third one, which I will show you in a minute. There are not so many boat builders left in the world who could do 312s. One of our boat builders on the first ride. This is the German Navy Academy in the back. This it looks like a castle, and they used to have 2 Robbe Berking and Rasmussen 12s for some 50 years. One of them was Sphinx, the boat you've just seen. Johan Anker, 75 years too late, we launched the boat. And 12 number 3, which we just launched in, I think it was May last year, is Ginetta, an Alfred Milne design from 1939 as well. This boat belonged to a Canadian owner and sank during a thunderstorm at the bridge in front of his, I think it was his summer house in Pitt Lake next to Vancouver. This is how she looked like when we got her out of the water. This is how she looked in 1939, sailing the Solent, I think. And we first dived down and made a photo documentation to discuss with the ITMA, the International 12-Meter Association, whether it makes sense to salvage the boat, because there was almost nothing left. And at the very end, it is a new constructed boat. Only the lead keel and 2-deck or 1-deck beam is original. The rest is new, but the ITMA said, yes, do it, we will accept her as Ginetta, and we said we have to do it. And so from time to time I say we restored her, and the next time I say we made her. Here we are on our way making her. This is the team. And in honor of Alfred Milne, I had the crazy idea, and the owner said, Oliver, it is a crazy idea, okay, but okay, let's do it, to give the boat, to make it not white or blue or whatever, but to give it a tartan. Can you see that? Coming out of our hall. That's just a joke for the first season or the first 2 seasons. It's a foil. We will remove it at the end of next summer and then give her her final varnish. I think the longest 12 ever made is Princess Svanevit, and the second longest is this lady with 21 meters and 78 centimeters. And there she sails again. And she will definitely come to Helsinki this summer. The commuter on top and Ginetta below. And another big boat which we made last year, or we restored the hull. Right now she's in Holland, where the interior will be done. Was an Olin Stevens design from 1939. There, the boat arrives on our fjord, swings in the backside, and the name of that boat is Beruna. We delivered her something like 11 months ago after we have done the hull. Quite a big boat as well. And in the winter time, there are some 12-meter owners among us. In the winter time, our 3 sheds are filled with 12s. There are also some other boats, but if you collect all the 12s, we have 11 of them in our sheds. One of them is this lady. This is Gretel from 1962, the first time Australia tried to win the cup. That's my boat, but it's not a boat anymore. It can be a boat one day. I bought it from Doug Peterson a couple of years ago. He bought the boat and always wanted to restore her, and then he got older and older and older, and one day he said, I will never do it, Oliver, you can have the boat. And since then I tried to sell it. So John, think about it. Gretel won one race. I just found that story when she was already in our sheds. During the America's Cup in 1962, and this did not happen to the Americans for decades. She didn't win the cup, as you know, but she won one race, and that was the day I was born. September 18, 1962, Gretel wins against Weatherly. And in the summertime, our sponsors, we have not a lot of, but quite some nice sponsors for our museum. I will show you some pictures later. Can use our sheds for whatever they want to do, celebrating jubilees or making customer events or whatever, or concerts. And then the sheds look like this. This is a concert. BMW used our shed to introduce a very special car a couple of years ago that's inside the yard. For BMW, we made something which is a mixture out of an aircraft and a submarine and a boat. In Germany, we say Fliebertüt. I don't know whether there's an English word for that. That's a design from Alfredo Heberli. He thought about the future of mobility and made a genius drawing, and we had to make that in mahogany. It's some 12 meters long. And next to the boatyard, I started a museum or exhibition hall, however you want to call it. I call it Robbe Berking Yachting Heritage Center, with a huge library, really huge library. Here you only see a part of it, with some 9,000 antiquarian books and magazines about yachting from the late 18th century until today. And since we opened the museum, which is October 16, some 3.5 years ago, we had some 200,000 visitors, including a number of high-ranking gentlemen like Prince Henrik from Denmark, like Constantine from Greece, the former king, like this one, but I forgot his name. What's the name of a former French president? Sarkozy. That's the father from Nicolas Sarkozy, the gentleman on the right-hand side. He was a sailor during all his life and visited us as well. And right now we run an exhibition dedicated to the America's Cup, and this is exhibition number 10. The first exhibition was called Royal Yachting. That was the exhibition when the royals came and visited us. This is an exhibition which was dedicated to Arve King and Rasmussen, to Henry Rasmussen, who started that yacht 112 years ago. His great-great-grandson unveiled the bust from his great-great-grandfather in our own yacht's Hall of Fame. This is the original old office in our museum. This is an old scary cruiser from Henry Rasmussen. We made an exhibition with 10 artists. I invited them to come to our Sterling Cup. Took some escort prepared some escort vessels for them so they could make paintings, which we exhibited afterwards in the museum. This is one of the paintings. We dedicated an exhibition about a year ago to Carlo Riva, the king of the motorboats. A year ago until April 2019. And in November last year, during our America's Cup exhibition, we hosted the America's Cup Hall of Fame induction ceremony. This gentleman, John Lammers, is a member of the jury. And the German magazine Yacht wrote the next morning, never before so many 12-meter owners have been, not 12-meter owners, America's Cup sailors have been at the same place as in Ollie's wooden boat box last night. I don't know whether that's true, but I like to read it. Many important sailors like this gentleman, Kim, like this gentleman, who will be the next keynote speaker. This is a view in our museum, in our museum's restaurant. And finally, we are also active for friends and customers as yacht brokers under the name Baum and König, where we have only classic boats, of course, quite some 12s, like Gretel, I already told you that, like Anitra, the marvelous and beautiful and fast boat, Henry Rasmussen, 1928. King Rasmussen. Henry Rasmussen went to the New York Yacht Club in 1927. I have to tell you this story because that's my dream. If people ask me, do you have a dream? I said, yeah, I have this dream. He went to New York and came back 3 weeks later. He didn't leave the yacht club, I think. And he came back with an order book with 6 12s and 10 10-meter boats only for members of the New York Yacht Club. 3 weeks. So I'm here, let's see what will happen today. And this is one of the 12s, US, what is it, US 5, Anitra, which is for sale now. So I told you about the museum, I told you about the regattas, I told you about the yacht. I told you about Goose, did I, or didn't I? I don't know. Since 2011, we do a magazine 4 times a year in German and English, called Goose. I brought a copy for each of you, not knowing how many you are. So I brought something like 30 copies. That's it, but you find some of them under your chairs. Please keep them, and if you like them, you will find the possibility inside to subscribe. Yeah, that's my team. Yeah. So the latest news, of course, it's better to show what we are doing on site in Flensburg. I only showed you some pictures, but all of you are invited whenever to visit us and to have a look. Just give me a call, and I show you around, or have a look at our Facebook site with 73,000 friends, where we tell you every morning what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Oliver, wait for a couple of questions. Thank you.
What is half an hour, almost?
Very good. Good timing.
Thank you.
Sorry, Oliver, just one question. I just heard into my ear came a very important historical information that 18th September 1962, you just mentioned that the Gretel won the race and you were born.
Yeah.
But did you know the fact that next day, John were born, and actually Gretel lost? So, but I have one question to you. There's a great story and an amazing place you have built there. And the Sphinx started as like a training vessel for the Naval Academy. How do you keep the next generation to be really interested, and how do you get them involved within the 12-meter sailing?
It's a totally emotional thing. Everything I do, sterling silver spoon as well as a wooden boat. And I made this museum And the target of the museum is to get all of you to Flensburg, of course.
Yeah.
To get people from far away. Nobody knows where Flensburg is. Nobody ever heard that name. And I want to have them in Flensburg to have a look at this lovely fjord and our boatyard in the museum. And I always say the average age of a 12-meter owner or a guy who buys a 12-meter boat is 70, which is quite young, isn't it?
Depending on who you ask.
Yeah. I don't know what to do to convince young people. It's a small target group. There are enough people in the world who want a 12 right now. There are enough people in the world who want a big candelabra, however the price might be. Right now, you just have to find them.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.